seen things people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for watching. We have Samsung versus Sony. The Samsung QN85D Neo QLED Mini LED versus the Sony Bravia 7. It's the battle of the excellent but mid-tier lineup for both manufacturers. Which one wins? You let me know. Without further ado, let's check out the Samsung QN85D Neo QLED versus the Bravia 7 Mini LED. Thank you so much for watching. Alright guys, let's do it. Let's check the design of the Bravia 7 and the Samsung QN85D. The Bravia 7 has two separate feet that have 4 different positions. Standard Sony remote that is available on the upper end Sonys. The QN85D has a center stand which is metal. TV sits pretty high. Also a solar and Type-C rechargeable remote. Both TVs have excellent build qualities. We checked the thickness of the Bravia 7 in comparison to the thickness of the QN85D. The QN85D is 65 inches. I have it on some blocks, so it's the same height as the 75-inch Bravia 7. Again, both have very good build quality. The QN85D is actually very heavy, probably due to the metal center stand. Both TVs will look good in any environment, though I give the reflection handling edge to the QN85D. Checking out the HDMI inputs on the Bravia 7. Textured back, smooth back on the QN85D. Now before we move into our first demo, the Bravia 7 has 4 HDMI inputs. 2 are HDMI 2.1 capable of 4K 120. The Samsung QN85D has 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs. All are capable of 4K 120. Unlike the rest of the higher end Samsungs that are capable of 4K 144 Hz, the QN85D is limited to 120. As we move into a darker room, we're really pushing the local dimming. You're seeing me change the presets with a lot of these demos. I will change them throughout. The picture presets for me are extremely important to define the signature of each manufacturer. What is the engineering team telling you about that preset? This is their interpretation of that preset. For Sony, we have the most accurate preset, which is professional, versus the QN85D from Samsung, filmmaker being their most accurate. And in that regard, we'll jump around depending on the content on screen. Moving into both cinema and movie. So important to see that both are keeping the clarity of the glass and aren't clipping, though this content can get very bright, from 1,000 nits up to 5,000 nits. This is very important in terms of local dimming and how each manufacturer approaches blooming. You can see the Bravia 7 has a bit more blooming around the edges but retains the brightness, where Samsung will lower the brightness to limit blooming and almost get rid of it entirely. What you'll end up is a more dim image. This is a punishing demo, but it tells a lot about what the manufacturer is looking to do. Samsung is much better than it used to be. It used to really dim down quite a bit. Now you wouldn't notice that if they weren't side by side, but you will have a bit more haloing on the Bravia 7. Sony has always been about keeping the image to the director's intent. Also, shadow detail is really important to them. They'll allow a little bit of blooming to keep the image as accurate as possible, which also means retaining the brightness in these scenes. Now the Bravia 7 is the brighter TV. There's times where it doesn't look that way, but in this particular scene you can see how it is a good deal brighter even as the screen becomes full field white. A very special shout out to the one and only Jennifer Gala and her second channel, HCR Super Channel. Most of the content seen within this video and intro is from those two channels. Check the description below for links to those channels. Consider becoming a Patreon and download these videos for your new TV in full Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. Thank you so much, Jen. Now, putting both TVs in vivid and dynamic, what is fascinating is though you can tell the Bravia 7 is brighter, it will also limit itself in order to retain the detail, meaning it won't get super bright and blow out the highlights as you're going to see in the next shot with the vegetation. But as I mentioned, very important to move the TVs all around the map. Some of you like your TVs in these presets. And you'll see here where the Bravia 7 will still retain some of that detail. But it all depends on what you prefer. Do you want that more saturated look, that brighter punch that Samsung will really deliver? There is no right or wrong. There really is just what you prefer. Again, it's your TV. Now we're going to go through the presets one at a time in real time so you can see. Also the different menus and operating systems. You have Tizen on the QN85D, which is great because you can jump right back to the setting you were in, and you have Google on the Bravia 7. Now quickly to note, what you have on the Bravia 7 is the XR cognitive processor that is available on all of their higher end TVs from the X90 all the way up to the flagship Bravia 9 and A95L. In the QN85D, you have the NQ4 AI Gen 2 processor. Samsung reserves its top-of-the-line processors for the 8K QN900D Neo QLED Mini LED. So the upscaling and processing edge and picture processing edge is going to go to the Bravia 7. That said, the upscaling and processing is still very good on the QN85D in terms of streaming, upconverting older, low bitrate content, sports, whatever content you want to watch. The QN85D is still going to be an excellent option. Now, I'd love to see Samsung do what Sony does, is have their high-end processor on their other TVs, because their upscaling on the 8K QN900D is some of the best in the world. But having Sony give you that XR cognitive processor from the X90L all the way through their lineup is pretty amazing, giving you that top of the line upscaling and focal point analysis, all that kind of processing on almost all of their TVs. Really puts them kind of above a lot of the other TVs that are priced the same or even perhaps a little more expensive. Now at this point in the video, what are you guys seeing? You saw in this demo in the beginning, I went from professional and filmmaker into the standard preset. My goal here with moving the presets around is to give each manufacturer their shot. Samsung has a totally different look in their standard and dynamic presets than the other manufacturers. Again, Sony will definitely pull ahead in professional and their more accurate presets, but they will limit themselves in those very bright presets again to maintain accuracy. This way, both TVs have their chance to shine at what they're best at. Now, why I like doing comparisons at this time of the year is the prices have normalized. The prices between the two are only a few $100s. For the Samsung QN85D at 55 inches, you have a $1197 versus $1298 on the Bravia 7. At 65 inches, it's $1397 versus $1398. The 75-inch QN85D is actually more expensive by a few $100s at $2,097 versus $1,798, and at 85 inches, the QN85D is $2,497 versus $2,498. So the pricing is right in line, and fascinating that the 75-inch Bravia 7 is cheaper. That you always see Sony get hit with that Sony tax conversation over and over, where Samsung is actually very expensive at earlier in the year. It's amazing how we get to the end of the year to see how those prices shake out. Now on screen, take a quick look at the transitions between the two and the colors between the two. Now the only things that have been matched up other than the presets, as the colors have been perceptually matched. Other than that, everything else is out of the box in terms of their presets. I haven't altered them. I'll show you later in the video when I do push standard on both a certain way. Now where they fit in the lineup is very interesting. The QN85D is the first Neo QLED in their lineup. Then it goes to the QN90D, then the QN95D, and then you have the 8K lineup QN800 and then the QN900. The Sony lineups are more straightforward. You have the X90 carrying over, then you have the Bravia 7 and the Bravia 9. As far as the mini LEDs, that is it. There is no 8K TV. The Z9K has carried over. So it's interesting to see how they line up. Samsung perhaps has too many offerings, a lot of TVs below the QN85D and a lot above. They also have two QD OLEDs, where Sony has one WOLED Bravia 8 and the A95L QD OLED has carried over. So I'd like to see Samsung have a few less TVs and Sony add a few more, but this is the difference in their approach, which is very important. Much like the presets, the way they move forward in their marketing and their lineups is very interesting. You want them to have different offerings, as you see me switch the presets in real time in this demo, from accurate to the more poppy standard. Now you're not seeing movies, as I won't risk my channel with copywritten material, but I will tell you the upscaling on both is very good. The edge goes to the Bravia 7, but the content you're seeing here from Gen, again, can range from 1,000 nits up to as high as 10,000 nits. So you are pushing these TVs to their limits. Now, yes, they will look their absolute best, but it's important to have the higher peak brightness, as the TVs will look different, which is also why I moved them out of their presets. If I want them to look exactly the same, I could put it in Professional and Filmmaker, call it a day, and make the video 5 minutes. The point of these videos is to leave them over 20 minutes so you see them in their true glory, see them for what they can really do in all kinds of different content and in all of their presets. Now, both TVs have been sent to me by the respective manufacturers. Obviously, the Bravia 7 from Sony and the QN85D from Samsung. What I love about their approaches as far as review samples is I've had them for quite a while. This isn't a 2-week review, send it back, box it up. I also am not keeping these TVs. They go back to the manufacturer. What I also love is all they ask is that you put up content. There is no direction for the content. For a lot of people, it's a quick review and it goes back. For me, it's really living with the TVs for as long as I have them, leaving them in the studio, letting them run all day, watching all kinds of content, sports, streaming, gaming, anything you can imagine is what I'll put on these TVs for the entire time that I have them, meaning I truly do live with them and get to know them throughout my time with them. And for me, as I've been doing this for quite a while, what I really love about that is I'm finding myself like certain TVs much more than I thought I would. The QN85D is a TV I always wanted to review. It's the one you see a lot in the big box stores such as Costco, Walmart, and I've always liked it. At Best Buy, a lot of times I think the QN85D is actually the flagship. Same with the Bravia 7, which I reviewed a few weeks before launch. Now in our black bar test, I'm going to go very off angle to show you the blooming in the black bars. We're in Filmmaker and Professional here, so the black bars are very dark. Even off angle, you can see some highlighting here and there. Look how off angle I am. Then I'm going to push them into vivid and dynamic so you can actually see more of the blooming as I go off angle. So again, really pushing the presets here, and then it's more visible. Still very good. Look how off angle I am. I would say they're both about equal here in these very bright presets. Again, pushing them, and as I move back out, they both get very dark again and both look great. So not really complaining at all about the local dimming on each as we move into SDR. Now, as we move into SDR, the brightness difference between the Bravia 7 and the QN85D is a bit more evident, though I didn't find the QN85D to be dim by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to leave it in cinema and movie for SDR. And a question for you guys, how much content do you still watch in SDR? I watch very little, but let me know what you guys think and how much SDR content you watch. Then again, I spend most of my time testing TVs and content, so it's a lot of HDR, but I want to show you SDR. Now, moving into colors, we'll see the color reproduction of both the Bravia 7 and QN85D will be in Filmmaker and Professional here. And the Filmmaker mode for the QN85D, very, very impressive. For me, Samsung's Filmmaker was very drab years ago. I found it to be excellent last year and this year. Very vibrant, very, very accurate. Nothing needs to be changed, and I think it looks fantastic and equal to the Bravia 7 in terms of its accuracy. In that preset, of course, we're going to move into what I call standard enhance. What that means is everything is maxed, meaning live color on the Bravia 7, color booster, dynamic contrast, black adjust, reality creation, all of that processing is enabled for this portion of the video, meaning they both will remain as accurate as they can as they're not in dynamic and vivid, but I still will push the boundaries and see how bright and saturated they can get. You can see the Sony still is going to remain accurate even in this juiced preset. Now, if you want to see how the Bravia 7 did against the more flagship QN90D, that is also on the channel, and the results were actually quite different. But to see the QN85D do as well as it does, considering this is the TV many of you see in those big box stores, I am very impressed and have fallen in love with the QN85D as one of my favorite value TVs that still offer high-end picture quality. Same for the Bravia 7. The Bravia 9 was the star. The A95L won the Value Electronics TV shootout again, back to back. People forgot about the Bravia 7 and even the Bravia 8. Excellent TV, and now they are both tremendous values. I recommend both of them and think they both look amazing in this more poppy preset. Again, going into the preset and just jacking up all of the settings, and they both still look awesome. And you can see, even in this preset, that the local dimming is still on point with this flame demo from Gen. This demo is 4,000 nits, and you can still see that there isn't any trailing at all. Transitions are very quick. Love the way they both look here. And in this shot, you can see how they both resolve the steam, even in these bright presets as we move into gaming. Now, Sony has done an excellent job of catching up with the pack in terms of its game mode offerings, especially the game menu. They have the target reticle setting. You also have the YouTube split screen. They have the screen size change. You can reduce the size of the screen. So they have many more options than they used to, and they actually caught up with everyone else. What this video particularly is going to be about is a tale of presets. The flexibility of image is going to go right to the QN85D. You can make the image look almost any which way that you want. So many different ways to change the image. You have a Dolby Vision on the Bravia 7, HDR10 Plus on the QN85D. Neither one of those really matter to me in terms of gaming. You do have a game mode similar to HGIG on the Samsung, which I do prefer, but you do lose the ability to move into a different genre. You're stuck in that. So the QN85D has many more presets, but they can be very complicated to navigate. Sony has only 3 presets: standard, RTS, which is my favorite as it's more deep. Then you have FPS. Now FPS is going to look not good at all and faded out of the box. If you reduce black equalizer to low or off, it will look amazing and be very bright. So comparing them is actually pretty hard in gaming, as I do have to move the QN85D into original, which is the dimmest and most accurate preset, over to compare it with the RTS or standard preset on the Bravia 7. Normally I would not do that. The QN85D has much more flexibility of image. Even the original preset can be made to look very bright, as the tone mapping can be changed from static to active, and it does make a huge difference. where Sony again looks to be accurate. Now, it has one of the best looking game modes in the business, but you really can't alter it much. A lot of the settings are grayed out or have very little impact at all. Gradation preferred and brightness preferred in regards to tone mapping makes very little difference. Even live color has less impact in this preset, as well as local dimming not being as impactful. But they both look amazing, and I will switch back and forth so you get to see what each one can really do, and that way I don't handicap either one. Now, the Samsung has 2 more HDMI 2.1 inputs. The Samsung is also capable of 1080p 120 and 1440p 120. Where with the Sony, you're just limited really to 4K 120 as far as not putting in a custom preset on PC or anything. So more plug and play on the Bravia 7, more flexibility on the QN85D. Also, you have more HDMI 2.1 inputs. Not how often you would use 1440p. You can use it on the PS5 and the PS5 Pro if you like. I never use it, but it's good to know that it's there. As I mentioned, the QN85D doesn't have 144 Hz like the QN90, QN95, S90, and S95. If you're a console gamer, that is not going to be a big deal at all. 144 really only affects you if you're a PC gamer, and even then you have to have a pretty powerful PC to do 4K 144. Now, what do you guys think of the image of both as I go back and forth between the presets? Now, moving into Ghost of Tsushima, it's really about HDR impact and shadow detail. Now, guys, it is the end of the year. We're literally a week or so away from CES, actually a week from CES, but I'm still knocking out content until the very end of the year. I have more comparisons coming up. Please check them out, watch, subscribe, all that good stuff, because CES is really our kickoff point of next year. But I really want to finish out 2024 strong. I really appreciate you guys being here and you guys watching. I love you guys and am so grateful for your support and friendship. And though it's the end of the year, many of you are actually buying TVs right now. These are 2 excellent options. And in closing, I recommend them both. You let me know who wins. But as I mentioned, many of you who are watching are buying right now. You're not worried about what's coming next year. And typically, you'll probably see the Bravia 7 carry over. I'm not sure. You'll definitely see a new QN85, but this is where you get that high-end picture quality at an excellent value. And I recommend both of these. As you can see, they are within a few $100s of each other. The prices go back and forth, but they're basically the same price. Let me know who you think wins. I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Love you guys. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing evening. See you in the next one. Take care.